Good morning. So today we're going to have a very quick look at the Mooney M20R in Microsoft Flight Simulator. This was developed by Carenado and it's actually been out since the early days of Flight Simulator. So some of Carenado's aircraft and obviously lots of other third-party aircraft have gone beyond the things that this aircraft simulates, but it's a very reasonable price in the marketplace, so I thought we might go and take a look at it. Okay, so you can see it's modelled really nicely from the outside. We are at a place called Boonville on the USA West Coast, just north of San Francisco. And we're going to fly across for our example flight over to Lampson Field. So you will see the reason for doing this when we take off, because it's a beautiful part of the world. And while we fly along, we'll look at some of the things the aircraft does well and some of the things it doesn't do so well. Okay, so looking right inside, you can see it's modelled really nicely. So, you know, the quality of the texturing is very good. And the quality of the 3D modelling is very good as well. So let's get this thing started anyway. So just going to check the control throws, make sure they're all correct. And we've got throttle, we've got mixture on a lever. Okay, so first things first, we go and check that the fuel selector is on one of the tanks. That's good. And then you've got the external lights are overhead, but we don't need them just yet. We need to turn the power on first. So master power comes on, and then alternator we don't need just yet. We don't turn the radio on until after the engine has started. So we put mixture on rich, and then we could use the boost pump for start. Typically you don't need it, so whether that's a simulation failure, I'm not sure. So let's go and turn the engine over without using the boost pump. Whoops. So there we go, the engine is running. Let's just go and check the volume levels to make sure that I'm not drowned out completely by the engine noise. No, it should be fine. There we go, you can see quite a nice animation of the propeller going around. Something else that's worth pointing out is the custom three-dimensional avatars inside the aircraft. They're much better than the stock ones that come with the simulator. Okay, so engine is running. You can see you have this fuel calculator down here, which seems to work. And the engine gauges work nicely, so when we turn on, if you watch the amperage up here, if we turn on the alternator, you'll suddenly get some amps. Okay, so let's go and turn the radios on now. Oh, I should have had the beacon light on before we started the engine, shouldn't I? So obviously there's nobody around, we're here at the airfield on our own, so we haven't done any harm. We're going to turn all the lights on. Again, there's nobody to blind on the ground, so it's not going to harm anybody. Okay, so there's an annunciator panel, whatever you call it, above the radio stack, which is quite cool. Tells us exactly what mode things are operating in. Okay, so we just wait for the GPS to boot up. Here we go. Enter, let it acquire satellites. The breakers are not clickable in the aircraft. It's a shame. There is a tablet, so if we go and click on the tablet, it will pop up into the cockpit. You get to choose the various things that Carenado typically do. So it's got, you know, tow bar, and you can open the baggage door. So let's go and have a look at that inside. So everything's modelled really nicely. Close that baggage door. You can open and close the doors as well, which again is done nicely. If you have the GTN, the PMS GTN 750, you can include it. It won't work at the moment. Following sim updates, or the most recent sim updates, if you turn on the GTN 750, you will notice, we'll just let it boot up, it won't be clickable. Yeah, the screen is broken. Well, the message button works there. That's interesting, isn't it? But the map button won't. So that's down to an issue with Flight Simulator itself, where if the GTN 750 is installed, if the aircraft has the GNS 530, then the GTN 750 won't work. Okay, so you've also got some quick startup options to set the aeroplane up quickly for you. So we'll put the tablet away for the moment. Let's go and program our flight plan in, just so we can have a play with that along the way. So flight plan, and we press the center of the knob, we roll it. We're taking off from D83, so we can click on the keyboard and go D83, Boonville, enter, and we're flying to 102. So again, we can roll the inner knob, click on the keyboard and go to 102, Lampson Field, enter. So there's our flight plan done. So we press the button to remove the focus, press flight plan again, and you can see it put onto the map. To make this map make a little bit more sense, we can change the page we are looking at on the main display. So we roll the inner track for doing that, and that changes us to a track upwards orientation and puts the compass rose on, and we can zoom out on that view and see the entire route. Okay, so we've pretty much done everything. It's quite a simple aircraft to operate. So we'll go and move the flaps to takeoff position, so you can see the indicator move there. If you go and look outside, you'll see the flaps have moved. They're actually enormous flaps, it has to be said. Okay, so let's go and have a quick look. So we want to turn immediately right and then turn around to the runway. Okay, so just make way for my joystick on the desk. So parking brake off. Open the engine slightly. Should have done pushback really, but there's nobody here to push me back, so I'm not going to worry. Roll out to the airfield. The scenery around here is stunningly done, I have to say. So if you want somewhere nice to go and fly, just to do some circuits with a GA plane, Boonville is fantastic. Okay, you can see there is little or no wind. The windsock over there in the distance is doing nothing. Okay, off we go. So I'm going to open the engine up. It would appear you can't damage the engine in this simulation of the aircraft. If I push the engine against the stops, it won't overheat or kill the cylinders. So it's very, very forgiving for newcomers. So we're looking at the airspeed, going through 70 knots. We're going to gently rotate. Nose comes up. So gear up. So it's all about reducing drag now to get some speed up. You'll see the master caution light comes on while the gear is in transit. That's absolutely fine. Put the flaps up now. As you can see why we're flying right here. A bit misty. Okay, so let's do a circuit of the airfield, just having a look around. We need to clear these hills. We're in kind of a natural bowl at Boonville. My phone's erupting with notifications. Hopefully not anything too complicated. That's fine. Okay. So there's the airfield. It's very, very misty, isn't it? So what we might actually do, so you get to see this scenery around here, is go and turn the weather off. So I'm going to turn the live weather off, and you get to see, let's put it on just a few clouds maybe. Then you get to see some of this scenery, otherwise you'd be missing out, because it does look spectacular around here. Flying it at the moment. We'll use the autopilot in a moment. So we're just over 1,000 feet a minute. Coming up. Oh, I didn't calibrate the altimeter. Oh, maybe I did. We're just climbing out to 3,000 feet here. One more turn. As you can see, visibility is pretty good. The view is not locked inside the shape of the aircraft, so you can use the cursor keys to push your view through the walls, which is quite handy. And things like the doors work and the sound reacts to that, which is good. Okay, of course now I've put the, I'm going to get rid of the weather completely, just for the purposes of this demonstration, so that we can actually see around ourselves. There we go, we're probably high enough now. So, what direction do we need to be going? We would like to be going 80 degrees magnetic. So let's come down to the compass and spin the heading marker to 80 degrees magnetic. And we'll begin turning that way. We'll get it in the neighbourhood and then we'll use the autopilot to take over. So we're just coming up to 4,500 feet. Okay, so I'm just going to trim the aircraft now for level flight, which is about there. So let's go and turn the autopilot on. So you can see it holds pitch and roll when you switch the autopilot on. We will then go to heading mode on the autopilot, so it's going to track slightly back left to the heading. And we'll have a play with some navigation, shall we? So you can see we're slightly off the GPS track to the left over here. So if we change the CDI to GPS mode, you can see that changed here. Notice the course can still freely be moved. So we can say that's the direction we want to be going, and this reflects that we're slightly off to the left. So if we engage nav mode on the autopilot, yeah, the aircraft's going to track slightly right to get back onto the GPS track to the destination. Notice how fast this aeroplane is. Obviously I'm running the engine flat out, so that's to make this more expedient more than anything, but like I said, you can't redline the engine, not in this simulation of it, so it's not really a concern. Okay, so there you go. The aircraft is centering up on the course deviation indicator and we're on our way. Okay, we can also do radio navigation. So if we were to, we'll go back to heading mode and then we'll tune in 11230 for the Vortec over there. 11230, so we go back to heading mode. And then we change the focus in here to the VOR radios. We want 11230. We switch that to become the active frequency, and we change the CDI over to VLOC. And we want the angle towards our destination to be 86 degrees magnetic. So we change the course to about 86, which is going to be about there, and you can see it's saying we're off to the right of the line, which we are. So if we go to nav mode, it should, there we go, look, it's broken. So first thing that's broken on this aircraft is nav doesn't work on the autopilot on VLOC mode. Okay, obviously we can still use heading mode. So we go back to heading mode and we can control that, so we could intercept it ourselves, which we will do. So we'll turn back to 50 degrees and you'll hopefully see that happen. Obviously over here you are getting the data from the VOR of what radial you're on and the distance, which is useful. You can see as we cross across the map towards that radial, the course deviation indicator will slide in as we get closer. Famous last words, of course. Get ready. It should do it. There it comes. Then when we get a little bit closer, we'll just spin the heading round to match the course, and then we'll be on that 86-degree radial. Have I got it right? Is that 86? No, I've got about 85, haven't I? So let's go one more. There we go. Okay, so let's spin the aircraft round to match. So we should find now on the map we are flying, well, thereabouts, on the line-ish. So we're flying over to Lampson Field. It's only a 20-mile trip. We're already over halfway, so we should be able to see over the top of the hill. The runway is down here somewhere there. Can we see it already? Let's sit up in the cockpit. Can't quite see it yet. Should be able to see it just over here in a few minutes. Or is that it down there? I think that might be down there. Yeah, through the gap. So we will do a left circuit to come into Lampson Field. Just going to clear these hills. Like I said, the scenery around here is stunning, isn't it? Obviously we've got the clear weather on just for the purposes of today's demonstration, but it's very, very good. Okay, so on to the next thing that's broken while we're flying along. And this is quite a serious one. The autopilot doesn't work correctly. The altitude control. So not only do we not have radio navigation, obviously you could see GPS worked, but you can't control altitude correctly. So if we were to go and roll this round to, say, we're at 4,000 feet, say we went for 5,000 feet, and we arm that, and then we should find, as soon as we did that, the aircraft should have started climbing at 500 feet a minute, and it has not. If you press this knob and take control, see, it says it's going to do 500 feet a minute, but look at the vertical speed. And if we change this, nothing works. What does work is the actual vertical speed itself. So if we go to vertical speed mode and change that to 500 feet a minute, for example, there we go, we've got 500 feet a minute. Interestingly, if you say something unrealistic like 2,500 feet a minute, it will do it. So it's climbing like crazy, but watch what happens to that vertical speed when the aircraft gets too slow. It will automatically wind out the climb rate to stop you from stalling. So get ready. The nose will start to drop as we get closer to flaps territory. This is going to be famous last words, isn't it? Here it comes. Yeah. So the climb rate is coming off. Yeah, so we can accentuate that by cutting the throttle. Let's see how far we can take it. Or is it just holding attitude? I think it's just trying to hold attitude, isn't it? So we've got more and more alpha angle the more we're doing this. So it's not very clever, let's put it that way. Let's see if it stalls. So I've just cut the engine right back to tick over, and it's doing just enough to hold it at 80 knots. Obviously we're actually descending now. Okay, so there's the airfield we're going to come into anyway. But yes, just to illustrate that some of the modes work on this and some of them don't. Okay, so we're going to come off the autopilot and we're going to fly in manually. while we're doing this, shall we do some stall tests just to help us descend? It's one way of descending, isn't it? So obviously that messing around with the aircraft has put a lot of trim on the back stick, so just removing that. Okay, let's pull it up into an obvious stall and see what it does. It doesn't drop a wing, so it's a very, very simplified flight model, unless Moonies do drop without dropping a wing. Let's do that on a turning stall under power and see what happens. So quite a tight turn. Keep pulling the nose up into the turn, and it does drop a wing, it tucks under. Will it do it the other way? So nose up. And it will tuck under both ways in exactly the same manner. That's interesting. Okay, so let's get our bearings. There's the airfield. So we're just looking to descend. So let's get the gear down. And some flaps. While we're slow enough to do it. We can now cut the engine right the way back now the gear is down. We're very high, so we're going to go full flaps. Something that the Mooney has that not a lot of aircraft do have is air brakes. Very good ones, or spoilers I should say. So they fold up out of the wing and they are really cool, so you can control a very, very steep descent. So you can see we're high and fast. So if I go and extend the brakes, you'll see we are actually decelerating while coming down at over 2,000 feet a minute. Which is so useful sometimes. Okay, so we're just approaching Lampson Field. Going to come off the spoilers now. Engine is still on tick over. Sit up slightly so we can see over the nose on approach. And it should touch down. There we go. Wheel brakes on, flaps up, and we're going to make the first exit, which is good. So there you go, there's the Mooney in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I hope you enjoyed that. It's the M20R. It's available in the marketplace, it's very cheap. Like I say, the only thing that's broken in it is radio navigation, lateral positioning is broken, and altitude control via the panel on the fascia. It's just, yeah, it's broken. I think it used to work. I'm pretty sure it used to work because I've had this aircraft for a while, and I can't remember it being broken in the past, so obviously a recent sim update has broken it. Let's hope Carenado updates it, but they haven't got a great track record with doing that, so we'll have to wait and see, I guess. I'm almost hoping somebody's going to say that I've missed something in the cockpit obvious that would have allowed it to work. In fact, let's try something. I mapped elevator trim toggle on the keyboard. Let's see, because I was looking at this trying to diagnose what was wrong with it, and this button is not clickable. Let's press Ctrl Alt E. No, it doesn't do anything to it. So I can't control that button. And in the real aircraft, when you would imagine when you press arm on this, that this light would come on as well, and that's not happening. Even when you're in vertical speed mode, you would imagine when you engage it, the light should come on, and it did not. Anyway. Let's go and park up at the fuel stand. We don't actually want any fuel. We're just going to park here. Wheel brakes on, and pull the mixture back to cut the engine. Turn the magnetos off. Turn all those lights off. And go and turn everything else back off in the cockpit. And we're good to go. Okay, so there you go. That was the M20R. It's not without its faults at the moment. Hopefully they get fixed. But it's very, very easy to fly. And if you're just starting out, actually, it's not too bad. But it might become frustrating because of those problems. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. And I'll see you again soon.